It's round 3 here at Masters Tour Bucharest, as we are going to jump from our current world champion to a former Hearthstone world champion, as we have tom60229 nearby, ready to start his first game.
Yeah, and we could be looking at a potential current world champion this year, if you want to look at it that way, given that Tom very recently, last weekend, qualified through to BlizzCon, to be happening in just a couple more weeks' time.
The first two-time Hearthstone world champion?
That's right, it could be. He's been playing some pretty strong Hearthstone in Grandmasters. I feel like he's definitely a player to be reckoned with. His only real weakness, I would say, has been his stubbornness with his deck building, I suppose you could say. I don't want to be too mean of a word here, because honestly I feel like given how strong of a player he is, I feel like he should be bringing slightly stronger lineups week after week, whereas he's just been playing the same stuff for like over a month now, week after week.
Let's go through it. So we're talking Zoo Warlock, okay. Yeah. We're talking Murloc Paladin, the very aggressive tip the scales version of the deck.
Right.
And Aggro Shaman, which, okay, sure, Aggro Shaman, that's standard. But yeah, weird lineup. Zoo, it's the first time we've seen that in a little while.
Yeah, this is kind of Tom's signature deck. If he's still playing the Plague of Flames version, which he's been playing for weeks in Grandmasters, he's been doing well with it, to be fair. I've consistently been critical of that deck because I feel like it wasn't really well suited in a Priest and Shaman metagame, but he's winning with it. And on the other side of the board, now that we are mainly mentioning Tom, given that he is by far the most well-known out of these two players, Sevel is a player who I don't know all too much from competitive Hearthstone, having seen results from him. What I do know him from is a Twitch chat in Hearthstone. He, like me, is an absolute degenerate who spends way too much of his youth watching Ball Control angrily play Hearthstone day after day.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, there are worse ways to spend your time in Hearthstone than watching angry Ball Control.
There aren't many.
Yeah, here is Sevel. Again, we don't know all that much about him other than, as you said, he's a frequent Twitch chat, but his lineup seems a little bit different himself. He's got the Priest, okay, check. He's got the OTK Paladin, okay, check. He's got Mage. He's got Reno Mage, in fact, which is unusual, at least in terms of this tournament.
What did he ban away from Tom?
So Tom's banned deck is his Priest. Again, Divine Spirit, Inner Fire, you know, the usual Priest. And Sevel also brought Shuttlewalk Shaman, so Quest Shaman.
Oh, right.
And he had that banned.
Yes, it's an interesting strategy to go for. I'm kind of surprised that you went for a ban Priest lineup and brought the Mage, because I personally feel like Reno Mage is not actually that bad against Priest. If you're hitting Zephyrus and you're hitting Reno, which is obviously unlikely to happen game after game, I feel like you're in a very, very good spot. It's just those first few turns that you have to bridge. Personally, you know, I have not been playing a lot of Reno Mage the last few days. I've been playing what are more considered the top tier decks, the decks I expected to be brought a lot more. But I do know that Bunny Hopper, a player who I have the absolute highest of respect for, also went for a Reno Mage in his lineup. So there's clearly something going on here with Sevel's lineup.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it in action. What are you peering over at here?
I was just surprised to see, I haven't had a full chance to look at the deck list very in-depth, but Tom is still going with the Thing from Below version of Shaman, as opposed to the Sea Giant version. I hate it.
Thing from Below?
I really don't like Thing from Below. I think it was a core piece of the metagame in its time, because of course, Totem Golem and even, what was it, Tuskar Totemic?
That's
yeah,
right.
exactly.
That would proc it,
when.
Totem Golem would proc it. You've only got Evil Totem going on here. There's not even... Oh no, 2 Mana Tide Totem as well. So he is running 4 totems in the deck in addition to the hero power. So I can see the logic, but yeah, I mean, Sea Giant has been so powerful in this deck.
Yeah, I feel like you have to play a bunch of support cards to make Thing from Below work, and the upside you get from playing these underwhelming cards is a worse effect than Sea Giant gives you anyway. I really don't like this list from Tom, but it does play in actually to the storylines that we had from Tom in Grandmasters, which was week after week he played decks I did not understand, I did not agree with, and he kept blooming winning with them. It's just almost as if to rub it in my face at this point.
Pretty standard Holy Wrath Paladin here. Obviously the big bonus that this deck got recently was the addition of Emperor Thaurissan. We don't see it all of the time, but Thaurissan in any sort of combo deck is very, very powerful. I mean, just having your timeouts costing 2, for example, is a big improvement.
Yeah, on the other hand, though, tom60229 on the Murloc Shaman, Murloc Paladin, I should say. This deck is not a deck that I've seen very much at all recently. I think it has massively fallen by the wayside, and honestly, with good reason. I know there was 1 week of Grandmasters when players in APAC and EU were both bringing this Murloc Paladin, and me and Sevel were just ragging on them constantly for bringing this deck, because I just don't really see why you would bring it. At the time, before Doom in the Tomb, I was like, okay, you know, you maybe just want to cheese some people. It's not that bad a lot of the time. I feel like now, in a Shaman metagame, it just doesn't even beat Shaman, even if you hit the dream, even if you get the curve of Prismatic Lens into Tip the Scales.
Best case scenario is you coin out the Prismatic Lens on 3,
right.
You play the Tip the Scales on turn 4, you get a full board of Murlocs. Do you think that's even that's not good enough to beat Shaman?
A lot of the time, no, because Shaman, if you play a full board of Murlocs, they just use that to their advantage to get out cheap Mogus, they evolve. Thunderhead can just clear up the board a lot of the time anyway. And I think with how powerful the Highlander Secret Paladin appears to be, a lot of players that I respect very highly, like Orange, Hunter Ace, I think Ball Control even as well, going for the Highlander Secret Paladin in their lineup. I think that's probably a better way to go, given that, in my opinion, a player of tom60229's caliber should not be playing a deck that you honestly have this little control over how the game shapes out. If this was a player who managed to squeak through in a qualifier, didn't feel very confident up against the field, I really wouldn't hate the play of going for a Murloc Paladin deck just because you think your chances are so low. When you're a former world champion, I think arguably the best player in Asia Pacific, one of the best players in the world, I think you want to be going for something that's a little bit more skill intensive.
All of that being said, Tom has the coin. He has the Prismatic Lens. If there was ever a game that he was going to win with this deck, looks like this is potentially that game. Sevel does have Wild Pyromancer and Consecration in the hand, but there is a distinct possibility that it is not fast enough to win him this game.
It's really just going to be the case of, as you said, for Sevel trying to get over that first the initial hump for tom60229, because we shouldn't make out that the deck is purely based on Prismatic Lens. I think the highest win rate card in the deck isn't even Prismatic Lens, it's actually Murloc Tidecaller.
Yes.
Just because it allows you to go for a slightly more aggressive early game, which is, you know, at the end of the day, it's still a Murloc deck. You can just win by playing Murlocs on the curve.
Here we go, Murloc War Leader, so it's going to be a 3-cost Tip the Scales.
That's fine.
Yep, it's fine. Kind of annoying that it hit the War Leader, because you want Tip the Scales to summon a War Leader. Yep. This one costing 8 means it's not going to see any play, likely ever, in this game. But yeah, Tom's going to play that next turn, and the question will be, can Sevel deal with it? And with Pyromancer and Flash of Light, or Consecration being the only forms of damage, it really depends on what gets summoned.
It does. I think Sevel should be in with a pretty good shot of clearing it off, because even in the worst case scenario that he cannot clear it off with a Consecration next turn, he should be able to go timeout, stall for a turn, Pyro Consecration on turn 6 should, I think, be more than enough to deal with what Tom's got knocking about. But then, as we said, the game does not end there by any stretch of the imagination. Tom can still go with Murlocs, and if he's able to find himself the second Tip the Scales in any kind of a timely fashion, he will have ripped 14 cards from his deck, which means all of a sudden he is just going with some crazy strong pressure.
No War Leaders, obviously. We saw one already cost 8, so disappointing that Tom didn't get the second one along with the Bluegill Warriors. The 4 damage, not really that impactful, actually, especially there's a Flash of Light in the hand. And honestly, right now, Consecration clears almost all of the board. Yeah,
it's an interesting spot here where the Pyro plus Consecration makes no difference. All it means is there's a 3-1 instead of a 3-2, which means he could very possibly just go for the Consecration here to clear up the majority of the board and then follow up with the draw on later turns. It's probably just correct.
Yep. Now, Sevel's in a pretty good spot when the second wave of Murlocs comes, dealing with that. However,
that's a good draw.
These are some good draws for Tom now, as he can create a pretty beefy board of Murlocs without playing a Tip the Scales.
I'm honestly just trying to think how many more Murlocs are actually left in the deck.
Both Tidecallers.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
That's kind of important, actually.
Well, apart from one of the Tidecallers.
Oh, sorry.
But Tom not going for the list that runs Chef Nomi, which we've seen from a lot of the players, because similar to Zephyrus, despite the fact that this is not a Highlander deck, you draw your deck pretty quickly when you're hitting Tip the Scales.
Yeah, Cold Light Seer is another card that is missing. I don't believe that one of those came from the first tip of scales.
Did not.
Apologies if I'm mistaken there. But yeah, that's... Seer is very, very valuable, actually, especially against decks that have removal, like Pyromancer, Consecration, that actually require a low amount of damage or health. Obviously, it loses to Shrink Ray Equality.
Yeah. I think this is a fairly easy Pyro heal with the second Flash of Light here. I think, quite gladly exchange 3 health for a 3-1 on the board.
Yeah, I agree.
Let me think.
It's kind of annoying that you're leaving a 2-1 on the board, though, which should just trade into it.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's, I think, the best option available.
Or it could be buffed and hit the face. But yeah, that's what he goes for.
And it's just doing what Paladin wants to do here for Sevel, given that both Paladins. In clearing off the board, drawing so many cards here, he just has had a very, very strong hand this entire game.
With the first Cold Light Seer drawn, that is Zephyrus now active.
Oh, good point. Very good point.
How impactful do you think Zephyrus can be in this matchup?
Incredible.
Yep.
In every matchup is the answer.
fair.
Yeah. I think the dream is, of course, hitting Bloodlust or Savage Roar for the lethal after you've made a wide board of Murlocs. But even in the late game, there's a lot of very good stuff you can do. You can set up Fireball, try and set up Pyroblast. You can obviously get Tyrion for a whole extra bunch of burst damage later on in the game with the Ashbringer. It is the absolute trump card for him. So for Tom, recognizing the best instance of when to play it will, I think, be the turning point for this entire game.
Okay.
Too soon, and he could just lose the game because he has no much value. But too late, and it may miss the opportunity where he even has a chance to win the game.
That second tip the scales is probably just unplayable at this point, right? There's a Nightmare Amalgam.
I mean,
I think that's about it. There's a Murmy.
I guess given that his Zephyrus is active, you're probably right. It's the weakest play for quite a while. It's just unfortunate that he doesn't have the Chef Nomi, because if he did, he would happily
I was
rip
thinking that
here.
earlier. That used to be a mainstay, this deck. I guess it was sort of replaced by Zephyrus.
Well, they were going together for a while. I think it's just, if you're expecting a lot of control and warrior, you really want the Chef Nomi, obviously, because they deal with your board so consistently.
Ooh, there's a lot of damage here if Tom wants it, with the double Grimscale Oracle, the Murloc War Leader, True Silver, Zephyrus, some combination of these cards.
Yeah. Just got to figure out what the best order to play them out in is. And sure, this feels good. A couple of Murlocs in play, you go for the attack buff, the health buff. Just make it so something like Shrink Ray or the Equality is pretty much necessary to clear the board here.
And that is not a Shrink Ray or an Equality, so Sevel's kind of in trouble. I guess he could Prismatic Lens, get a cheap minion, get the Shrink Ray, and then play that. Even then, though, the Murlocs keep their attack buffs, so Shrink Ray isn't ideal here.
Yeah, I was wondering if this was a turn where you go for Pyro, trade in both your minions, and then start going off with spells. But yeah, I guess it's probably not quite going to get the job done. But Zephyrus, on the other hand, probably will be able to get the job done. Unless it gives some weird choices. We've seen some wonky Zephyruses already this weekend. But yeah, that is absolutely perfect there.
That'll do it. Tom, without really the means to make a large board, a tie caller as well. So Tip of Scales was looking good. I don't think there's much left. Oh,
that's all right.
5 minions, actually, you take that.
I wonder there for Sevel as well, when he went for the Crystology, how certain he was that that would activate his Zephyrus, because I've been used to casting Grandmasters where Deck Tracker is allowed,
right?
Whereas here, obviously, it is not allowed, given they're on tournament computers. So, I mean, if he knew that that was his last duplicate left in the deck, fair play to him. That's pretty impressive to keep track of that many cards.
I mean, the players that take these Masters Tours seriously will be practicing without Deck Tracker.
True.
That is just a way that they'll be playing the game. You may as well practice at home in the same environment, or as close an environment as you can create, as the one that you'll be competing in. So it wouldn't surprise me if Sevel was keeping track of that. Sandron now. Shrink Ray vitally being picked up and setting off that Pyromancer. And I'm starting to wonder what this Zephyrus is going to do. Has Tom missed his opportunity?
Arguably. I mean, we can talk about missing his opportunity maybe isn't the perfect phrasing. It's more just, was it ever good enough to win the game?
Yeah.
Because he could have, of course, just thrown it down for like a big threat. Turn 8, it gives you a high main, of course, on the Hunter, so he could have just gone for a Savannah high main for 8 mana.
Can he force the silence from Zephyrus?
Not for this minion, no. There's only very specific scenarios that Zephyrus offers silence, usually when it's got a huge attack and health buff. It can't read that effect.
Does it not read Divine Shield lifesteal?
I mean, I think it can read it, I just don't think it would care that much. Maybe, I mean, again, Zephyrus works so weird, and I'm very, very bad at predicting what it does.
Holy Wrath picked up. Shivala's still not drawn. Is this lethal?
I mean, even if he hits, it's still not lethal, right?
He's got a second Holy Wrath that he can also play this turn.
Not quite, but I think the main thing is just not even going for the Holy Wrath. It's as soon as he hits Shivala, the game ends. Because he just goes, Shivala, hit it in, banker it, Shivala again the turn after, blah, blah, blah. And as long as he doesn't play too much into like Zephyrus plus Twisting Nether to clear off every single one of his threats, I think even then, Sevel's just in such a strong spot.
Yeah. I mean, the timeouts are just too much for Tom to sort of deal with, survive long enough to deal with like, thanks to his fatigue.
He's got a 50% chance for lethal right here, as long as he doesn't draw the Chevalier.
Yep.
So after the draw, he has a 50% for lethal with just double Holy Wrath.
Okay.
It's obviously not necessarily the play at all.
It's just not necessary at all, is it? He can just chill out with the timeout.
Oh yeah, he's got the second one in hand, sure.
He's going to go for it. Why not?
It just draws a card. It's
Everything's
just
still
correct.
glowing green, so it's not lethal. Could go again. It doesn't seem necessary.
Well, how can he set up 100% lethal here? There has to be a way, right? If he goes Novice Engineer for 5 mana plus timeout.
Or Hammer of Wrath plus timeout.
Yeah.
Close to the board as well.
Problem is he needs a 3 mana draw next turn to be able to set up 100% lethal, I think.
Uh-huh.
But there's always a chance that Chevalier is just his last card, in which case he just wins the game.
It's true.
Anyway.
That's a 50-50 at that point.
It's really just making sure he plays around Bloodlust, Savage Roar,
It's
and
fine.
Fireball.
He doesn't even need to play the timeout, though. That's the thing. He can just chill out, kill the 3-1, leave a 1-1 on the board. Okay, you've got 5 damage. How do you get the rest? And you can't.
Sure. Yeah, there's nothing he dies to. Even if it's an attack phase, swing phase, and then Zephyrus, I think it still wouldn't offer to Pyroblast there.
And even if it did, it wouldn't be good.
Yeah.
Where's Dynasize when you need it?
That was a pretty cool card. I forgot about that.
In Wild is the answer to that question.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, also, it's not a true Darrett cast unless you name a card that it's impossible for Zephyrus to get in some scenario. Every time, I'm always like, oh, if only it was offered him Muster for Battle here or something like that. I'm like, wait a second, that's been a card for like 4 years.
So Shivala not the bottom card, which means Sevel can just chill out, play a timeout.
Damn, he can't win the game. He has to just win the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 100%
How
block.
annoying. Yeah, Sevel is going to take that first round. And again, remember, Tom had the dream scenario with
Pretty
the
much,
Tip the
yeah,
Scales.
pretty close.
He got to coin it out on turn 3 and played Tip the Scales for 3 mana on turn 4. And he still wasn't good enough. So Tom might struggle to get a win with that deck. Like you said, it doesn't necessarily seem like the pick for this tournament.
Yeah, I think that there's some matchups that you could pick up some pretty good percentages in. The problem is that a lot of lineups now just are able to deal with a turn 4 surge of minions very easily. We're of course talking about Warrior can go for a brawl on one of the coming turns. Shaman can just explode with Mogus and Thunderheads and all that nonsense. We saw what the Paladin can do here. Res Priest that we've seen from a lot of players has the Mass Hysteria. I feel like the matchups where you're picking up a lot of percentages here are Druid. This deck is fantastic against Druid, I find, because either you hit the turn 4 huge board with the Prismatic Lens into Tip the Scales, or you just kill them with Murlocs, which are just very good against Druid. And I think it's also good against the Rogues, which we've seen a huge influx of here, where they don't have an answer to a wide board. If you go Tip the Scales on turn 4 against Rogue, the game ends.
Yeah, that is fair enough. It's just going to be difficult. I don't know what to say.
Yep.
The remaining decks that Sevel has to play, as you can see on screen right now, it's going to be the Combo Priest, Classic, Divine Spirit, Inner Fire, etc. And Reno Mage. Maybe against a Reno Mage early on, the Murloc Paladin could do its thing, get a full board of Murlocs and win. I don't know. It's possible. It needs to find an opening somewhere, that's for sure.
Yeah, the other reason why I think that Murloc Paladin, or any Murloc deck is something you have to be very hesitant about going towards is purely Zephyrus, because Zephyrus offering Hungry Crab 100% of the time when your opponent has a Murloc on the board. Honestly, I mean, we laugh. It just blows out the game. You cannot beat that pretty much as Murloc Paladin, because I would say even as the Shaman decks, all of which run Sludge Slurper, some of the time, if they go for Zephyrus into the Hungry Crab to kill that off, you still have win conditions. You still have Mogu, Thunderhead, all that good stuff. But as Paladin, you don't have any comeback mechanisms. It's purely just a neutral Murloc Flood deck, which is why I know I'm ragging on it a lot. It's not my deck.
You're not a fan.
Not a fan.
Is what you're saying. Wait, sorry, you didn't like this deck?
Ha ha ha. Yes, I do not like this deck.
Well, hopefully Tom can prove you wrong at some point in this series. But yeah, former world champion, of course. Someone to take very, very seriously, taking down Frozen in the finals back in Amsterdam at the start of 2018. Very, very good player, Grandmaster. Like you said, qualified for global finals this year at BlizzCon. And here we go. Let's see what he can do this time. He's going to be bringing the Shaman, a more standard deck. His most standard deck, actually.
Yes, I think that's very fair to say. This is... I didn't actually... I saw someone just tweeted at me the breakdown of class distribution. And Shaman is... I'm trying to look at how close to 100% it is. It's pretty close to 100%. It's actually like head and shoulders above Priest, which I found quite surprising.
Oh, really?
Thanks, Steve Lubitz, by the way. Shout out. And I think with good reason. If you're not bringing Token Shaman, you're bringing Quest Shaman, both of which are arguably the best deck in the game right now. With a lot of players, even Hunter Ace, going away from Combo Priest, despite the fact that it was his baby in the first place, at least the Born Samedi edition that he made there, which pretty much became core. Everyone is bringing Shaman because we just see time after time after time what it can do. Most of these players have lost to me on ladder the last few days with me playing Shaman.
Have they now, Derek?
And that means something's wrong. If you're losing to me, the deck is busted, okay?
Gotta say, though, pretty strong start for Sevel here with the Beaming Sidekick, the double powered shield onto the Light Warden. Then again, Tom, with Kobold Lackey there, Lightning Storm. Thing from Below, which you're saying you're not a big fan of?
No, I personally prefer the Sea Giant build, but he's got the important anti-priest cards. Lightning Bolt and Lick Him are what I mulligan for specifically against Combo Priest, because Cleric, Tolvir, Light Warden, Sidekick, Blade Master, everything dies to these cards. Literally everything, until we were hitting the health buffs or the Amit, of course, in the mid-game, which is a little bit of a problem.
Sevel going really far in here with that injured Tolvir. I guess protecting against the Lickham, as you were pointing out earlier.
Yeah, I think this is a great play. The difference between 3 health and 5 health against Shaman is all the difference in the world. It's not even close. You have to be getting your minions up to this 5 health breakpoint. So I think for Sevel, this is spot on.
Played
with his
it.
Paladin play as we sit inside there.
Played around it, but still a little bit annoying. Divine Spirit picked up, though, with still powered shield and Beaming Sidekick.
It's not bad.
This Shaman deck doesn't have any hard removal. Oh, it's got Plague of Murlocs. It does have a copy of Plague of Murlocs.
How does Tom find the room for so many bad cards in this list?
So
where are all the good cards?
Not a fan of Plague of Murlocs, Derek?
No.
Derek, the most opinionated Shaman caster.
Well, like, it was fine in Evolve Shaman because you had no win condition against Priest for most of the time, but you don't beat Priest with this deck, but you're pretty good against Priest with this deck. You don't need the Plague of Murlocs. Weird.
Derek
but it could be good. It could be good.
Derek is shaking his head profusely as he gives this rant, for those of you unlucky enough that can't see him right now.
For those unlucky, every single human in the world bar one.
Hey, I'm sure our production team can see you.
Mike does not care. All right, here we go. This is the point you want to get to for Sevel. Divine Spirit, Inner Fire, 100%. Yep. You don't even think about this. Jam it, because this is where the Shaman struggles. Outside of the Plague of Murlocs, there is no hard removal in this deck. So you just want to make it as difficult as possible for them to kill it off, and then pray it gets there.
I mean, even if he had to Plague of Murlocs this turn, it wouldn't be ideal for Tom. I think it's fair to say. Though, it is what he needed right now, and it's not present at all. Thing from Below, is an option. It's 5/5 Taunt. That is something. It is significant. Sevel doesn't have any cards in his hand. So,
Right.
well, only has 2 cards in his hand. They're not relevant.
It's a very weird spot because we're looking at like hero power plus thing from below is playable on this turn, of course, which stops the 8/8 from attacking in. I'm wondering if you go for mutate on the thing from below.
I was looking at that as well.
Yeah.
If you get a Taunt Totem, you definitely go for that.
I guess so. Yeah, that makes more sense to me. The problem is I've had with thing from below is that it's not even good to evolve a lot of the time. 7 drops are just bad.
Ooh, that's not an improvement, but we're going to try again.
Okay.
Take 2. It's a 6/6.
Absolute disaster. And I think for Tom here, I was struggling with this line, and I think if you're going to go for the evolve line, this is probably the way to go, because it means if you get a bad 7 drop, you can just mutate it. But honestly, I think this whole line I just don't really agree with. I think I wanted to see hero power plus thing from below, or maybe even kobold lackey plus thing from below. Just make it so you damage this 8/8 as much as possible, and then on the following turn, just hope you draw an overload card. You got a pretty good chance to, honestly. This does obviously still contest the 8/8, but when they're able to hit the Tolvir as well, things just go very, very wrong.
This is starting to look unwinnable for Tom. He's going to have to do some real serious work to catch up with this. Sevel just going to go ahead and play the second hit of fire. He doesn't need it anymore. This is all Sevel needs to win this game.
That is an overload card. So we are now looking at Thunderhead, trade the Geppetto, 2 1/1s. One of them can trade into the 2/1 of the Reborn. So he's not dead on board, is the upshot of this. He can survive the turn.
Ethereal Lackey. See, I was wondering about Ethereal Lackey. I don't think you ever play to this, but getting that into an Earthshock, maybe it was worth considering this turn. Now he's not going to have the mana to play an Earthshock if it comes.
Right.
Or a Hex, or a Plague of Murlocs, etc., etc.
It's an interesting point you raise, actually, there. And I think if he was dead on board, I would obviously like that just as that out. I think given that he knows he can 100% survive here, this is probably a higher percentage line. Because Priest has no burst. If you clear the board, you win. It's just how the deck works. Mutate a bit awkward because you want to get a value trade with the Geppetto, but I think you have to trade the Geppetto into the 6/6.
I think you do, yeah.
Yeah. It's still probably the best.
I mean, something was going to evolve at some point.
Yep.
Obviously, the problem is...
Was it Charles Darwin that said that once?
Problem for Tom is that he can't deal with...
That's a smart miss attack as well. There.
Yeah.
It means that, he's not dead on board. That had to not be traded in.
Yeah, if the 3/2 went into the face or into the minion, Sevel could have just healed it up. The Light Warden would have gotten the buff. And as you said, Tom would have been dead on board, so that would have been a huge misstep. But now it's sort of all in on this Light Warden.
You can see it from Sevel. He thinks this is running away from him, and it is.
That's it. The Light Warden's dead.
He's got Bon Samdi, which is the best remaining card in his deck.
Yes.
But it meant he had to skip turn 6 entirely. That was a galaxy brain not attacking with the Raptor there.
And now Manatide Totem gets its chance to shine. All of the time in the world to draw some cards.
Yeah.
Sandy, High Prince Armor. That's so good after Bon Sandy.
That's the combo. That is the card that Sevel needed. He's back in the lead, I'd say, by miles.
Sevel's still on 30 health. There's no risk of him being dead anytime soon.
That's right. So what's the out here for Tom? How does he manage to wrestle this back? Obviously, he doesn't know that Sevel has Amet, and just 3 1-drops probably don't win the game.
Plague of Murlocs.
Yes, probably yes.
There's your answer.
And the Manatide Totem to draw through to it. Is this the best build ever?
Or a Bloodlust. I mean, he's going to need a Bloodlust and then some. Vicina obviously would be helpful.
Fantastic card, yep.
Just evolve the Manatide into Vicina. No problem.
Now we're talking my language. Whether or not you go for the Voltaic Burst here is really interesting, actually, because they have Rush. You don't have to go for them this turn if you want to attack into it. I'm just wondering what the benefit is of saving it. It's Wild Pyro, it's Thunderhead, and I think because of those things, I actually like saving them here. You're not going to need 9 mana next turn in the vast majority of cases. Yeah, I think this is smart. Because they're never going face here. They're always just trading. Like, even Bloodlust off the top didn't offer lethal there.
I see a dark future.
You don't see much emotion from Tom, but That'll bring it out in him.
Yeah, that's a 9 health Ahmet, and he knows that there's more 1-drops in the hand. He saw them being drawn last turn. Where is that Plague of Murlocs? Nope. Another Manatide Totem. The story of the day seems to be how weak these Manatide Totems are.
Yeah, I don't know. I was talking to Muzzy and all the guys that brought it in the break, and they, you know, well, their argument was you need to draw cards, to which I was like, thanks. Appreciate it.
That is some helpful information.
Yeah. But it's not the worst card. It gave him a higher chance of finding the Plague of Murlocs, to be fair.
So there are definitely lethal possibilities for Sevel now.
Oh, yes.
Anything that buffs up the Light Warden, like anything, any Circle of Healing, or even
Topsy, Inner Fire, Circle of Healing, Nefeset Ritualist, like there's so many good cards
too.
Especially because they all draw 2 or more off of the Cleric anyway.
Yeah.
And the Healing Totem as well, you can just damage the minions in play and then the Healing Totem will draw cards for him.
But he never said now kind of awkward just because there's Sevel has to make some trades, then trade into the 2-1 of the 1-1, then play the Nefeset.
Well, he can do it this way, right? He can heal his Blade Master to buff up the Light Warden.
Ah, that's really
and then trade.
Good,
yeah. And then he gets 2 card draws.
A second Nefeset.
Oh no, wait, he can't get 2 card draws because the Ahmet is in the middle, kind of annoyingly. Okay, whatever. He's probably still just winning this game.
Is that Tolvir? Yeah. Okay. Not actually helping all that much right now, so the game isn't over just yet. But again, Tom, barring Plague of Murlocs, even with Plague of Murlocs, Sevel probably just has lethal next turn. Is that Topsy? That's Topsy.
Oh my god.
He finds it.
I was just going to say, he could have traded the Ahmet first to draw an extra card. The only downside of not doing that was he doesn't hit lethal with exactly Topsy off the top. But far be it from me to question the willings of a man who can just get it off the top like an absolute god.
Do you know what, Derek? I think Sevel might be a better player than you.
I think that's fair of most people here, to be perfectly honest. That's why I'm sat here looking like a numpty, and he's there 2-0 up against a former world champion.
Yeah, potentially winning a lot of money and a place in Grand Masters.
That's what they're all here for.
We're going to keep reminding you this, as that is the big story. The winner of this tournament, unless the very specific possibility Zim comes second and then various other things go wrong in EU.
We're just going to say they get it. If you win this tournament,
the winner of this tournament
you
is
just
guaranteed other than that. So, yeah, Sevel looking like he's in a good spot here. Both of these players are sitting 2-0 at the moment. But yeah, Sevel 2-0 in this matchup as well. Very, very close to being 3-0.
It's the perfect dynamic I like here in Hearthstone, in the Masters Tour events, where you have some players very well known, the Grandmasters, the former world champions, the stars of the Hearthstone ecosystem. And then you also have the players trying to make a name for themselves, just moving on up here for Sevel. And I'm glad they have a strong chance up against each other in this series.
We are going to give Tom a few moments to get his head together and hopefully get ready to make a big comeback in the series. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a few moments. It's tom60229 up against Sevel. The score is 2-0 with Sevel in the lead, only needing to win with his Reno Mage. So Tom in a really rough spot, actually.
Yeah, it's not looking good for him. The Reno Mage is, I think, a deck that since the big nerf that we had to Luna's Pocket Galaxy, is a deck that has been underrated. It was clearly the best deck at the time. We all saw Masters Tour Seoul and the debacle that ensued there with like everyone bringing Mage and just kind of high rolling each other with that deck. In this Masters Tour event, though, thankfully, it's a little bit more in level, a little bit more in tune with the rest of the decks in power level. But I think it still has a very strong place in the metagame. It is underrepresented, in my opinion. And I think up against the decks that Tom has available, it's not bad. Zoo, you can just control the game early on if you get a Zephrys or a Doomsayer. The Murloc Paladin, like I said, if you're just able to hit Zephrys, probably game over on the spot.
Yeah, that's a problem. Hungry Crab, as you correctly pointed out earlier, can just shut down the Murloc Paladin immediately. Reno Mage has changed a little bit as well. In addition to Luna's Pocket Galaxy being nerfed and actually removed from the deck now, there's obviously been the extra cards added in, and Sevel is running N'Zoth the Corruptor.
Is he not playing Luna's?
He's not playing Luna's Pocket Galaxy, unless I'm completely missing it. No, he's instead running N'Zoth, and he's running Kartut Defender. So and Sylvanas, obviously. Very, very defensive, slow package there. But yeah, a little bit different, quite exciting.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, actually. I think that in specifically Reno Mage, Luna's Pocket Galaxy is still probably good enough to be playing. I guess it's different to ladder to tournaments, of course. If you're not expecting a lot of control, then maybe you don't want the Luna's Pocket Galaxy. But like we were saying, it's really just the early game cards that he's looking for to get a bit more oomph in his play.
Well, here we go. Tom's final chance.
I could watch, you know, there's YouTube compilations that people make of person reacting to things. I could watch a 10-hour video of just Tom reacting to stuff, and it's almost the same face all the way through, but just slightly different. You have to learn to read him.
So what's this expression then?
This is, I've drawn like rubbish.
But hey, there's the Manatide Totem coming in to save the day, and
it's good here. In this matchup, this looks strong, and I'm not even being sarcastic.
No, I agree. Doomsayer going to see to that, but in the meantime, the Manatide Totem will draw a second card.
That's right.
I guess that's just fine.
Very good, actually.
Tom can just go ahead and pass. Totem up first. He is running Thing from Below, so every totem counts.
Good point. There's some thinking for Voltaic Burst, Soul of the Murlocs, but I hate that thinking and would like Totem Pass. You know, if he had a strong play he was going into next turn that took advantage of that, then I wouldn't mind it. But yeah, this instance,
he sees the line.
Oh, what a god of a Hearthstone play.
It would be an easy mistake to make though, because
to just pass?
Yeah, because Thing from Below hasn't
yeah.
been a thing for very long, and it was missing for a long time.
I wonder if he's just sat there thinking, "Ah, my Frost Giant just got one cheaper now."
But at least they haven't released a card that says, you know, it gets 1 mana more expensive every time you use your hero power. Oh, now we've got Tom forehead cam. Or top of hairline cam.
No, you should have just left it at forehead cam and let chat explode.
Okay.
Whoa. It's never a play you want to make, but I think here with Thunderhead and a Voltaic Burst, I like the play of Vicina here. It's difficult to clear off in a clean way. You know, hero power doesn't do it. 5 mana. There's not a whole lot that Sevel can throw down.
Ziliax, though,
Ziliax
is the card that will
card.
do it. Yeah. That is so unfortunate for Tom.
Oh, he's just going from bad to worse as well. We're looking at Sevel having the perfect curve in the coming turns.
Okay, hold on a second. So Thunderhead, Voltaic Burst, Noble Flesh Shaper. Is that a thing? That is a thing.
That is a thing. Perfect mana to go with Mutate as well. That's the draw. That is the absolute draw. Not even Reno will be enough to clear this off.
Oh, how cool!
Okay, yeah, Reno's still not good enough to clear off. It's getting a bit closer, but not quite there.
What a turn!
I'm thinking Blizzard into Reno might be enough, though. But yeah, that was pretty much the only thing that I think could pull Tom back into this game.
Reno on its own just isn't quite good enough this turn. I was going to say maybe he can play it anyway, even though it doesn't clear the board, but chances are both Alakir and Thunderhead survive.
Right. How much damage does Bloodlust equal? Like, can Sevel ever consider not blizzarding here is my question. I guess he could go Kartoot, of course.
We're gonna have some fun.
He just rips it.
Okay. And as
The
as I
expected
said,
result
yep.
happens. This was so weird. Because it kind of sets up for Blizzard, but my thinking is why not go Blizzard this turn and then Reno on the following turn?
Bloodlust right then was 18 damage, by the way. Like, Tom is really shaping up here.
I think that's fine. I think the Bloodlust damage you're taking there, you're happy to tank as Sevel because
Okay.
you're not dying to Lightning Bolts and Lickims quite yet.
Okay.
Not quite.
How all in does Tom want to go is the question, because he could go Kobold Lackey and Mogu Flesh Shaper and Soul of the Murloc.
He wants to play Soul this turn. That's always happening.
Yeah.
He needs to think carefully about how he does it because he doesn't want to board block himself, so he can't play Mogu. So this seems correct.
Yep.
Actually, I wonder if he should have played it before he played Mogu, because 7 minion Soul of the Murloc is usually worse than 6 minion Soul of the Murloc,
Right.
because if they just go Blizzard, you're board locked, or Frost Nova, you're board locked. But he trades in a couple anyway, so I take it back. I like this. I like this a lot.
And now with Reno used up, Blizzard is the only way of clearing this board, really, and it leaves a lot of 1/1s alive. Like 5 1/1s.
Right, and I can see Sebel's thinking to an extent, because if he goes Reno on that turn...
Sorry, the 3/2 doesn't die.
Right. If he goes Reno on the previous turn and get... Oh, is that just lethal? Not
16,
quite. Not
it's
quite,
16, yeah.
So if he goes for Reno on the previous turn, it means that it's probably a 3-1, a 3-2, and a bunch of 1/1s on board on the following turn, against which Blizzard is fantastic. Does, however, mean he has to take a lot of damage in the interim.
I don't think
and
there's
be
a way.
left just dead.
Yeah, Sevel can't prevent the Kobold Lackey lethal regardless of what he does. Kartoot looks so good here.
Right.
But it doesn't beat Kobold Lackey. And there you go. Tom is going to take his first win of the series. That's a relief.
Big time. And I think for Sevel, I think that turn 6 play, which was undeniably the pivotal turn for him, that was the biggest decision by a country mile for him. I think he might have made the wrong one, to be perfectly honest. Like, getting the Reno on board, I can see what he's going for. It contests the board pretty well. But he just takes so much damage in the meanwhile. And it Blizzard into Reno, or even Kartoot Defender into Reno, just to make sure he takes a little bit less damage. I think I liked a tad more. Having said that, though, maybe it would be the case that Tom still is able to go wide, play Soul of the Murlocs, and it's the same instance. It could have worked out the exact same way. I'm not saying Sevel could have won the game. I think he could have maybe just optimized his chances slightly.
Any way to Ray of Frost that Kobold Lackey so that it stays in the hand? I don't think.
Not quite.
No.
No way to board lock either. So
All right, Tom gets the lethal, and already his score has been updated. Look how on point our production team is. Look at that. As he gets his first win of the series. A lot of work to do still, though. Got to beat that Reno Mage 2 more times. Once with his Aggro Murloc Paladin, and once with his Zoo Warlock. Now, if memory serves, controlling Mage decks tend to be pretty good against Zoo Warlock decks.
yeah, I think it will be okay. You also have the in both of these matchups, weirdly enough, they're the 2 decks that I think are weakest to Zephyrus at the moment. Because against Murloc Paladin, you have Hungry Crab. Against Demon Zoo, you have Sacrificial Pact that you can go for to just kill a demon like that. So we're looking at any of the big demons being played, even just a mid-sized one like the Nightmare is the 5/5 off of Evil Recruiter, which is a demon, can just be easily eaten up nice and easy by Zephyrus. And at that point, you're left pretty high and dry. So I think for Tom, he won with the easiest deck first, the best deck first, by a pretty fair margin. Now he's left with the leftovers, the scraps that he has to try and take a win with.
The scraps which he did choose to bring to this tournament to play. I mean, for Tom, it wasn't a short flight. He's come all the way from Taiwan.
It's a long flight, let me tell you.
You've also come all the way from Taiwan, so, Tom's obviously put in the time to prepare for this, much like you have with your top 25 Shaman
with my great
display.
preparation of playing nothing but the same deck for 2 days, which everyone's banning in this tournament. Yeah, I think for Tom, it's no secret that I have consistently disagreed with his deck choices throughout all of Grandmasters, to which his answer should, I imagine, be, shut up, Derek, I've won a world championship, you haven't. And I'd be like, fair enough, because he brings decks that work for him and he keeps winning with them. Who am I to argue with him? I'm almost like, I feel like I've learned my lesson by telling him or saying that his decks aren't good, even if I know deep in my heart that his lineup is just not the brick.
So once again, Tom has started with Prismatic Lens in his hand. The nightmare scenario for Tom is he draws the second tip scales. That would just shut the deck down pretty much entirely. But it's looking like Tom is going to have a pretty spicy couple turns.
I like this play for Sevel. Doomsayer there I think was tempting, but of course you're playing that into the one turn where your opponent doesn't want to develop minions anyway, where they want to display the Prismatic Lens. So I think Doomsayer is better saved for a slightly later date.
Maybe now, actually. Doomsayer
if it delays the tips of scales for a turn, yeah, I don't hate that.
I mean, like, you could, as Tom, risk playing tip of scales anyway.
Yeah.
War Leaders to buff up Nightmare Amalgam or the 1/1 and Bluegill Warriors. You can, but that'd be a huge risk.
There's a lot going on here for Sevel, actually, because he has Sandbinder in his hand, which draws 50% of the time Zephyrus, 50% of the time Siamat, because he's not playing Ragnaros. He got the bad one there, to be honest. He really wanted to find the Zephyrus here, because he could have even gone Zephyrus into Frostnova and then go for the Reno on the following turn, just to make sure he doesn't take the big burst of damage.
Here we go. Going to leave the 1/1 alive, assuming it gets buffed, which it does. Quite significantly. It becomes a 4/1 and just make the trade as a result.
Okay, fine. If he didn't get exactly 2 of the 4 out of...
Yeah.
But even 2 of the 1/1s wouldn't have done it.
Or a Bluegill Warrior in addition as well.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it's fine. He's still left with a very, very big board.
Chances were pretty good.
Yeah. Now means, of course, though, that Sevel, through not playing the Doomsayer, has to be able to chunk a hit from these minions. And honestly, don't know if he can. Clears off a fair amount here.
So 15 damage. The True Silver Champion becomes 19 damage.
Yeah, I'm counting 19 too.
He's just going to go ahead and deal with the Doomsayer, it looks like.
Yep. But then, what does Sevel do? The Reno doesn't even come close to clearing off the board from then on, so he has to find Blizzard. Frostnova. Is he even playing Frostnova in the deck? Yeah, he is, okay. So AI into Frostnova is an out for him.
Flame Ward also would have been reasonable. I guess Bone Wraith, sorry, is okay.
I think
it absorbs a little bit of damage.
Sooner go Polymorph Ping than that. He can still go Polymorph here though, okay, on the War Leader.
Oh, that's not what Sevel was looking for. Yeah, polymorphing the War Leader does make sense. It reduces... Oh, it removes a lot of attack damage from the board. Second War Leader isn't playable for Tom because he's board locked.
The non-ping was the winning line there for Sevel, potentially. It's been such a weird game. Not pinging your opponent has potentially won the game. Or not attacking with a 3/2 has potentially won the game. Not pinging a sheep has potentially won the game. It's probably still just over.
I mean, Tom is 2 damage away. I don't know what Sevel does here.
Probably still just game for Tom.
Flame Ward. Is there a way? Flame Ward ping the 3/4? No, because he still takes the attack first. Well, the attack still goes through and then the Flame Ward goes on. And like you said, True Silver. Flame Ward plus Ice Barrier would potentially be enough. But
Flame Ward plus Bone Wraith and Tom screws up is maybe your best chance.
Even Frostnova isn't good enough here, though. Neither of those cards are Frostnova anyway. Sevel concedes. Tom has evened the playing field here.
Damn.
The score is 2-2. This series started by going sort of how we expected, with what we consider the better decks winning.
Yeah.
But now Tom is making a comeback, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it was a lot of the cards you're not really looking for there, as the Highlander Mage, or the Reno Mage, as we call it as well. I always get it mixed up because I'm not supposed to call the other Highlander decks Reno decks, despite the fact that everyone just calls them Reno decks, so then I miss that with Mage. Anyway, it does mean that it's just the Zoo left now available for Tom. This has been undeniably his signature deck throughout all of Grandmasters. Taking a look at the build that he has available, it's pretty much the Tom build of Zoo as well, where he's got Scarab Egg, he's got the Serpent Eggs as well, whereas the vast majority of other players are running him for 2 eggs. He's got 4, plus the Plague of Flames. and honestly, he's been doing pretty well with it.
Well, there is one game remaining this series. It is going to be the Zoo versus the Reno Mage, coming up after this. It's Sevel versus Tom. Only one game remaining to decide which of these two players is going to be ending round 3 of the Swiss on that coveted 3-0 score. And that's a big deal. Again, we're talking winner of this tournament is almost guaranteed in Grand Masters next year. Not so big for Tom, obviously. He's already in. He's already made global finals. But for Sevel, that could be a life-changing thing that happens to him.
And for a lot of these players, you know, Tom has already reached the absolute pinnacle of competitive Hearthstone. He's done it. He's been there. He's got the T-shirt. Probably did actually get a T-shirt from going to the finals, but for now, it's about making a legacy for himself. He wants to be able to prove that he has had the best year or the best lifetime career in competitive Hearthstone out of anyone. That's kind of what we had from Hunter Ace last year, where I think we can say safely that's probably the best year that any single player has had, given the consistent results that he had. And so for Tom now, if he can get himself a winner of a Masters Tour this year and winning at BlizzCon in just a couple weeks' time, that would truly cement him as just the winner of this year, basically.
Yeah. I mean, remember a couple of years ago when Pavel was trying really hard to get 2 years World Championship in a row?
He was close.
He was close, but then didn't quite make it over the hurdle and is like, oh, never mind. It might not be 2 years in a row, but Tom getting champion 2 years just in general would be incredible. Is Pavel here, by the way? I miss Pavel.
I don't know. I feel like I would say, just kind of sense
I think
a feeling of doom.
Yeah, we'd know if Pavel was here. All right. Game number 5. Here we go.
Tom keeping the Voidwalker on the mulligan there. It's a 1-drop, which obviously you want to have. It's definitely, in my opinion, one of the less good one-drops. I would much rather have Flame Imp, of course. And I'd also rather find, I don't know, maybe some of the eggs early on. I guess he doesn't actually run that many one-drops in the deck. It's like Beaming Sidekick. A lot of them are very weak. So, fair enough. Given how much you want to play a one-drop on one, I don't mind this from Tom. It's just something I've realized with a lot of Zoo players is they keep cards that I think are, like, fine in the matchup, whereas every card in Zoo is fine.
Yeah.
Right, they're all just 1 and 2 drops, so of course they look okay. Whereas you're looking for the real power curve, like this,
So
Egg into Evil Genius.
/ Grim Rally, like whatever you want, really.
Yeah. Disgusting.
You did point out before that Zephyrus is particularly strong against Zoo because of Sacrificial Pact.
True.
0 mana, destroy a demon, and heal for 5. Not so relevant against a Voidwalker, but against some other larger demons. Like that could be very helpful later on.
Yeah, maybe the Imp Gang Boss that we saw added in
Right.
to Doom in the Tomb. This is pretty much just a straight addition that Tom has made into the deck. He realizes the power level of Imp Gang Boss, and I completely agree.
It's incredibly powerful.
Yeah. It's a bit of a weird draw, though, at the start here for Sevel. He has the Zephyrus, and he has the Seamat, but that's kind of bad because he also has the 2/4.
No
the
Brightwing.
Sandbinder. I'm actually kind of surprised it didn't offer him Brightwing. It's usually Animal Companion that bites the dust. This is a play I actually haven't seen before.
Well, take it and just hold it?
Yeah, use it as kind of like a battery effect. So just store the potential energy of Sacrificial Packs and then use it later on.
Yeah, pay the mana cost now. Also get the body when it's maybe a little bit more relevant.
That's
3/2
right.
Zeph body. It's not being dealt with, so it will be able to value trade the 1/3.
I too have been trying to cultivate that hot Zeph bod over the summer.
Well, you've done a pretty good job of that, Derek.
Thanks.
We're just going to be quiet for a very long time now and move on. Okay.
Do you not remember how we cast? You say an awkward double entendre, and then I leave it hanging like a fart there for a few minutes.
It's been too long, Darren. It's been too long.
Very strong setups available on this turn for Sevel, but no real power plays available on this turn. I wouldn't mind going for Snip Snap on this turn to set up for the Conjurer's Calling on the Snip Snap next turn. That's generally a very powerful play as Mage. The only other thing I was really considering was value trade Coin Conjurer's Calling for a couple of 2-drops here for Sevel. I think that's a little bit too weak. I want to save the coin for maybe Coin Seamat later on instead.
So now Tom has picked up Flame Imp as well. Another decent target for Sacrificial Pact. Feels really punishing when you play a Flame Imp, damage yourself, and then not only does it get destroyed, but you heal your opponent all at the same time. Yeah, I mean, I guess Tom just plays some things, buffs some things with Grim Rally. He's in a very dominating position on the board at the moment. Sevel doesn't have a board clear available to him.
Yeah, I like this a lot from Tom. He's going for the big board development turn, the turn before Sevel can go Coin Reno or Coin Blizzard.
Yep.
And therefore I think it is very likely to get in a tremendous chunk of damage.
Yeah. That Sandbinder isn't drawing anything now, is it? As both Zeph and Seamat have been drawn already. It's Arcane Intellect. Maybe Sevel needs to play it and just get himself closer to a board clear. This is probably also a good turn for Sack Pact. Get rid of 4 damage from the board. Get yourself back up to 25.
I definitely want to see Sack Pact on this turn. I'm just wondering what the rest of the play is, because Poly on the 4/5 is okay. It's not bad at all. Poly on the 2/4, and then you can value trade the 1/1, and probably not worth it. Sack Pact and then trade Conjurer's Calling, probably the best line to play. Yeah, I think I like this most too. Oh, just in case he gets Kirin Tor Tricaster, this was the correct order. Oh no, wait, that's a 4-drop. Doesn't matter.
Nice try.
Nice try, yeah. It was probably the wrong order then, actually. Are there any 3-drops that make your spells more expensive? Because there are 3-drops that benefit off of casting spells, like
Nothing springs to
the
mind.
3/3 Mage card.
I'm trying to find a lethal here, maybe? No, he's quite far off.
Yeah, I think just really try and find big, beefy minions, which, hey, that's exactly what he found.
Yep,
This is
CJ,
nuts.
successful.
Yeah.
Evil Recruiter, successful.
Soulfire, I like the look of that.
Yep.
That almost looked like a Zephyrus option there. Like, those were just really strong cards.
Probably not going to play Plague of Flames. Just a got a suspicion that that's not something Tom's considering this turn.
Yep, you just want to go for absolute maximum development on this turn because now he's got himself in a position where Reno is laughable. What does it even do here?
Blizzard really is the only good option this turn. Well, that and Frost Nova, I suppose.
Yes.
Neither of them are present in the hand. Sevel could go Intellect into potentially coin Frost Nova if it's drawn as a Hail Mary.
How do the trades work? So if we go value trade with the Razor Vent Hunter, trade the 3/3 into a 3/3, then you're looking at, it's so much damage still. Is it just too much? 15, 20, 21, I think you're looking at then. So even with a poly thereafter, it's still, I think, just a little too close to lethal. I wonder if the only out is to go for Arcane Intellect Frost Nova.
It might
if you
be.
poly an 8/8, then you're looking at 5, 9, 13, 14 damage, I think.
Yeah, and then Soulfire would be lethal, as we can see. But that's going to be it, and it looks like after a pretty incredible series, Tom going to take this one back, going from 0-2 to 3-2 with the reverse sweep. tom60229, former Hearthstone World Champion, shows he's still got it.
A very important win there, given that the only real leverage you have in this Swiss system is one loss. If you lose 2, you're pretty much out of contention to make it through to the top 8 on Sunday. So even though Sevel is still in with a chance here, it's looking significantly harder for him. Whereas, as you said, for tom60229, he's looking like, honestly, a real favorite here. We've been critical of his lineup. I wasn't sure how I felt about the Paladin, but I'm sure Sevel, as much as I wanted him to see him succeed there, is going to have to be having second thoughts about his mage.
Sevel came very, very close, you know, not an embarrassing performance by any means.
Oh, not at all.
I'm very excited to see what we see from Sevel later on in the day. I'm sure that he'll be back, but for now, Tom does reign supreme. So we're just watching him sort of walking around in the corner of our eyes there. You can see us glancing around, that's why.
Oh, we see him. We know exactly what he's up to.
Yeah.
Taking his bags and leaving like a player who just won.
Leaving the room. Didn't even say hello to us.
I mean,
come on, Tom.
He probably doesn't even know who we are.
Tom
He's
definitely.
too famous for us.
I know Tom. Me and Tom are bros. I also see Sotul and Lorinda walking into the room though, which I think means it is time for us to switch over. So yeah, from Derek and myself, we'll see you again very soon. But stay tuned. Sotul and Lorinda coming up next with round 3 rep matches.